Hey guys, good to see you again. Welcome back to the garage. I'm Lee Kelso. I'm holding about 10 pounds of fun. This is a Mitsubishi TE05 12B turbocharger. It's going to replace the Garrett T3 that was in my 1989 SAAB 900 that we are converting from an automatic into a 5-speed. There is a lot to do today to install this turbo. Come on, let's get to work. I'll start by inserting these bolts in the exhaust manifold here and then installing a new steel turbocharger gasket. The gasket in my car, on disassembly I learned that gasket was totally whacked. It was trashed, and so I wasn't getting complete pressure through to the turbo. The gasket at this fitting had blown, was falling apart, so wasn't getting all the turbo power I could out of it.
Well, that was just part of the problem. Back in episode 9, I showed you how my original turbo had 3 major issues. We learned the turbine shaft bearings were pretty well shot.
Can you hear that? As I spin up this turbine, it seems to be coming in contact with the housing.
On the impeller side, the compressor vanes were bent, possibly from contact with a piece of debris. And strike 3, the turbo housing was cracked and unrepairable. That explains the change to the Mitsubishi.
So in 1989, SAAB had both water and oil cooling for the turbochargers. Here's the gasket we're going to put in the feed line. So this is the oil line that brings oil out of the block to the turbocharger. And so we'll reseal this with a gasket. This is your turbocharger's wastegate mechanism. As the pressure reaches this maximum safe level, this rod will extend and it opens that little valve inside the housing. Can you see that moving? That allows some of the exhaust gas to bypass the turbo and go out your exhaust pipe. I don't believe that the wastegate mechanism in the Garrett Turbo on my car was ever really working properly, at least not as long as I'd owned the car. I don't recall, as hard as I drive that car sometimes, I don't ever recall hearing that wastegate open or feeling that relief of pressure. So it'd be real interesting to see how well this turbo performs once we get the car back on the road. Hey guys, let me take a moment for a sidebar. Here is my bag of bolts. Now, it's blindingly obvious, but it has really helped me a lot during this process. As I was dismantling things, I took the time to bag the bolts and label them so I could find them easily as they all went back together. So, for example, there it is. In this little bag are all the bolts and nuts I'm going to need to put the turbo back in place.
Well, at least I did that much right, because I caused myself a problem by bolting on the turbo before I connected the oil return tube that drains oil from the turbo housing back into the block. Your turbocharger's bearings are oil and water cooled, so great, I got the oil feed line connected, no problem at all. But when I go to try and install this little gasket in between the end of the oil return tube and the turbo housing, there is just no way it wants to fit up. So I am going to loosen the mounting bolts here that attach the turbo housing to the exhaust manifold, and hopefully that will let me move things around enough that I can get that fitting in place. Live and learn. Here's the problem. This oil return tube just will not line up and bolt there. So now that the turbo is loose and able to move just a little bit, hopefully that gives me the space I need. There we go. I think that might get it done. Let's see. Fortunately, the banjo bolt for the turbo coolant line went in with no real headaches. I then pressed ahead and installed my reconditioned alternator and bolted in place a fresh power steering pump.
Our engine bay is all fresh and clean, waiting to receive that new 5-speed transmission, and I can't wait until that day arrives. But we have another project ahead, and that is installing new front axles that will give us fully lubricated tripod bearings and brand new constant velocity joints. So this will be a fun project, taking us underneath the car. Hope you'll be here for that. Hit the subscribe button and then get out in the garage, get yourself dirty. We'll see you next time.